Hello everybody. Today my topic is lubricants and mechanism of lubrication. So what are lubricants? Lubricants are the materials used to reduce the frictional forces between the moving parts of a machine. So what are lubricants? Lubricants are the material used to reduce the frictional forces between the moving parts of a machine. So this is the definition of lubricant. So when we use any substance that is used to reduce frictional forces, that is called a lubricant. So what are frictional forces? How frictional forces arises? So frictional forces arises when one rough surface move with the another surface. Frictional forces arises when one rough surface moves on another rough surface. So for example, so this surface looks smooth, but when we look under a microscope, these rough surface look like okay. So under high power microscope, these surfaces look like rough surfaces, that is there are projections and cavities in these surfaces. So there are numbers of projections and cavity in these surfaces. So I will try it again. When these rough surfaces move with each other, so this is cavity and this is projections. So when these surfaces move with each other, so there is an interlocking in projections and cavity. So all solid surface which look smooth to naked eye have a number of grooves or irregularities or projections and cavities. When viewed under high power microscope, that is they have projections and cavity. When projections fall over cavity during the movement, they get interlocked. They get interlocked. when they move with each other, or one surface move on the another surface. So, due to interlocking there is a resistance to the relative motion of the surface. So, due to interlocking there is a resistance to movement between different parts of a machine. So, the resistance to movement is friction. This is friction. So, to minimize these friction, we introduce between these moving surfaces a substance that is called lubricant. So, to minimize these type of resistance to movement in machine parts, we use a substance that is called lubricant. So, friction is friction. What is friction? Friction is the opposing force. So, friction is the opposing force So, friction is the opposing force that is set up between the surface of in moving surfaces. Okay. So, friction is the opposing force that is set up between moving surfaces. To overcome the frictional forces, the extra energy has to expend. So, energy required is increased. Extra energy is required to minimize to move. A machine in which friction is high. So, energy is increased, energy requirement is increased. The friction produces heat which damages the machine. Friction produces heat which damage the machine parts, and more energy is required, and friction may damage the machine parts. The friction also damage the machine parts. So, they rub against each other. So, there is a wear and tear of machine parts. Maintenance cost of machine is high. Cost of machine parts is high. So, maintenance cost of machine parts is high. So, these ill effects can be minimized using a thin layer of substance which makes the working of machine smooth. These ill effects of friction are minimized using a thin layer of substance called lubricant. Okay. So, the ill effects of friction are minimized by using a thin layer of substance called lubricant. So, lubricant is a substance which are used to decrease the force of friction between the moving parts of machine in contact. And the process of decreasing the force of friction between the moving parts of machine in contact is known as lubricant. And the process of decreasing the friction using the lubricants is called lubrication, and this process is called lubrication. And lubricants are thin layer of substance that is introduced in thin layer of substance that is introduced in machine parts to reduce the friction, and this process is called lubrication. So, next are functions of lubricant. Next are functions of lubricants. So, what are different functions of lubricants? Lubricants avoid the damage of moving parts by minimizing the production of heat. Lubricants avoid the damage of machine parts by keeping them apart. And smooth. Okay. So, lubricant avoid the damage of machine parts by keeping them apart and smooth. So, energy requirement is decreased. Energy requirement is decreased by using lubricant, as much energy is needed when the there is more friction. So, when friction is reduced, energy is decreased. So, energy requirement is decreased, efficiency of machine is increased. Efficiency of machine is increased. So, machine will be more efficient by using lubricant, as less energy has to consumed. So, lubricant reduce the wear and tear of machine by keeping them apart. Reduce the wear and tear of machine parts. Maintenance cost is reduced. Maintenance cost is reduced. Cost is maintenance cost is reduced by using lubricant. Lubricant act as a coolant So, fifth is the maintenance cost and sixth is the lubricants act as a coolant. So, lubricant act as a coolant because they reduce the production of heat between the moving parts of a machine. They reduce the production of heat. As they reduce the production of heat, so they act as a coolant. So, next is using lubricant, relative motion of moving parts of machine becomes smooth. So, relative motion of machine part becomes smooth. So, when we use lubricant, the motion of machine parts become smooth. So, next is lubricant act as corrosion preventer. It act as corrosion preventer as they are applied on machine parts. So, mainly these are oils or grease. So, these act as a corrosion preventer. Lubricant act as a seal. Lubricants also act as a seal. For example, in a piston used between the lubricant used between piston and walls of the container prevent the leakage of hot gases produced by internal combustion engine. For example, when we use lubricant, around the piston, so when we use lubricants here in these parts, so it act as seal as hot gases does not come outside. So, it act as seal. So, lubricant act as seal. So, what are the functions of lubricants? So, lubricant avoid the damage of machine parts by keeping them apart and smooth. Energy requirement is decreased, efficiency of machine is increased, lubricant reduce the wear and tear cost of machine parts, maintenance cost is reduced. Lubricant act as a coolant as they reduce the production of heat. Relative motion of machine parts becomes smooth, it act as a corrosion preventer. So, lubricants also act as a seal. So, these are the functions of a lubricant. So, next is mechanism of lubrication. Mechanism of lubrication. So, mechanism of lubrication, it depends upon the types of machine and working conditions. Depends upon the types of machine, working condition, It depends upon the type of machine, working conditions, that is whether it is light or heavy machinery or slow or fast moving. Okay. It is whether slow or high speed machine and depends upon light or heavy machinery. That is, mechanism depends upon types of machine. So, which is machine it is it slow or heavy or slow or high speed machine, or is it light or heavy machine. So, according to working conditions. So, working conditions, that is slow or fast moving machine, and the types of machine, light or heavy machinery. So, according to these, the mechanism is mechanism of different mechanism are three types. First is hydrodynamics or fluid film or thick film lubricants mechanism. So, there are three types of mechanism. So, first one is hydrodynamic. So, hydrodynamic, or this is called thick film or fluid film. Thick film or fluid film. Second one is thin film or boundary lubrication. Boundary lubrication or thin film lubrication. Okay. Third one is extreme pressure lubrication. So, there are three types of mechanism. First one is hydrodynamic or thick film or fluid film lubrication. Second is boundary lubrication or thin film lubrication. Third is extreme pressure lubrication. So, first hydrodynamic or thick film. This is also called fluid film. So, in this type of lubrication, a thick layer of lubricant is inserted between the moving parts. In this type of lubrication is done in case of a fluid, in case of liquid lubricants having minimum viscosity under working conditions, and at same time it should remain in place. So, this type of lubrication is done in case of liquid lubricants having minimum viscosity, but they should remain in place. Remain in place. They should remain in place. That is, they should not remove from the surfaces. They should remain in place and separate the moving or sliding parts. and separate the moving or sliding parts. Here the machine movement is slow. In this type, the liquid lubricant fills the grooves or irregularity of the sliding surfaces. Liquid lubricants fills the grooves or irregularities of sliding surfaces. Okay. They move the irregularity of the sliding surfaces. So this can be here. I will draw this type of lubrication. Okay, these are two surfaces, and a thick layer of lubricant is inserted. This is lubricant. Lubricant, and this is surface. These are two surfaces, and in between them is a lubricant. You can see load. Velocity. So these two surfaces are moving with each other, and the layer of lubricant, that is viscous lubricant, is inserted in between them. A thick layer lubrication. Thick layer lubrication. Here the lubricant diameter of lubricant is thick. Okay. So there is a thick layer in between these two surfaces. There is no direct contact in these surfaces. No direct contact. In the surfaces. So they moves on the layer of lubricant. They move on the layer of lubricant. The lubricant reduces wear and tear by reducing the friction forces. The frictional resistance to the movement of sliding parts is only due to the internal resistance between the particles of a lubricant. The frictional resistance is only due to this frictional resistance is only due to the parts of particles of lubricant, that is they move with lubricant. Here frictional resistance is independent of the load. Frictional resistance is independent on the load, but depends upon the area and relative velocity of the sliding parts. Depends upon the area and sliding parts. surfaces. So, frictional resistance